How many can you save?
11 species. Blue is the last of her kind.
You'll never capture her.
We thought you might know someone who could help.
A rescue op? What could go wrong? Hey, Blue. You know me. Come with me. You know you can't stay here. Pack your men up right now.
Welcome to Mojo at the Movies. I'm Eric, and joining me today is Manny. How you doing, buddy?
Very good, Eric. Yourself?
I'm good. We're talking movies. We're talking Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom. You're a big fan of the Jurassic universe?
Yeah, I am a big fan of the first one, which was a good one.
When you say the first one, do you mean the first,
Jurassic
World?
Park.
Okay, Jurassic Park, right, going back 25 years.
Which was an amazing movie, yeah. And the sequel to Jurassic Park gets a lot of crap. Jurassic Park 2.
Yeah.
But I think that's because the third one was so terrible. So they're like, all the sequels were bad.
Number 2 was the one when they were in the city, right?
Yes.
Dinos in the city,
Dinos
basically?
in the city.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So this now is Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom. The big question is, did we need another Jurassic World? Or put another way, is this a satisfying sequel, or is it a crappy cash grab?
Well, what the studio needed is more money.
They
because
needed,
had,
yes,
nothing.
Hasn't been going so well for them lately.
No, it has not. So I think that this was more along the lines of, this is a safe bet, and we will make our cash, and we'll move on. They're not making that money in the U.S., that's for sure.
No, that's the interesting thing. So this movie has already generated almost $500 million outside of the U.S.
Yeah.
So they made their money, but is it a good movie?
No, it is not.
Okay, well, let's start by talking about the story itself. Yeah. So, fill us in. Where did we leave off at the end of Jurassic World?
So at the end of Jurassic World, they kind of all just got off the island, and the dinosaurs are roaming free on this island. And that's pretty much it. I mean, the first movie was pretty uneventful. It's like,
that's it. I was trying to. It left no impression on me. The only thing I remember from Jurassic World, and I did see it, was that scene in the trailer where the giant crocodile-looking thing comes up. That's the only thing. That's the only memorable thing from that movie.
I remember how bad the effects were.
To
know that this movie came 20 years after the original one, and these effects are not good.
Well, let's dive in the story, and there may be some mild spoilers here.
I would say full spoilers.
Okay, full spoilers.
We're gonna.
Well, okay,
we're not. I'm not pulling any punches on this.
Let's tear a new one.
Hey, Blue.
We don't really believe it. It's like a miracle.
So it starts off where they're going to basically the island is about to explode due to a volcano, which was very interesting considering what's been going on in Hawaii lately. That this was kind of good timing.
I guess good timing.
Yeah.
But clearly this movie was written in an hour and a half. So maybe they're like, hey, there's a volcano in Hawaii blowing up. Let's just put that in the script. We got nothing to do.
But it felt very realistic. We've been watching the news, seeing these images of volcanoes and what they can do, the destructive nature. And so the dinosaurs are in danger of, a cataclysmic event, and there's an impetus to save them from the island.
I feel like I'm done giving Hollywood a pass when a movie's budget is over $120 million, your effects are not allowed to be not good.
Well, we can get to the effects.
The effects in this film look good, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. The story in this movie makes absolutely no sense.
It does seem just kind of all haphazard.
Yeah, I feel like you made this reference before off camera.
Yeah.
This is a G.I. Joe plot.
Right,
isn't it? This is something I feel like Cobra Commander would be down in his lab, kind of bouncing ideas off Destro, and one of them, they're just throwing darts at a board, and they're like, it'd be crazy, weaponized dinosaurs. And Cobra's like, oh my God, that's amazing! And then then they do this plan, and G.I. Joe comes in and saves the day.
The evil Emperor Krulos was plotting to capture the Step Crystal with his own grotesque Rulon forces. And so, the battle continues in a new place and time with Dino Riders.
And at one point, actually, we're looking at one of the dinosaurs in a cage, and they're talking about how this is the closest thing you could ever imagine to a tank. And you whispered to me in the movie,
whispered over to you, it's so much cheaper to buy a tank.
Right. So
Like-
the idea is the bad guys are taking these dinosaurs, they're weaponizing them, and then they're auctioning them off to like, you know, a cabal of like the
Terrorists and like
the most
gangsters are
cliched
there.
bad guys I've ever seen.
And that's what bothered me about this movie is that I feel like, okay, the first one got a lot of backlash. You know, like a lot of people were like, "Oh, but this doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense." But in this one, it makes even less sense than the first one. Like they create a mega raptor, right? And this raptor, it's like
Indoraptor, I think they call
something
it.
like that, and it's like it can take commands. You know who can take commands? Paid mercenaries can take commands, right? You pay them enough money, and they'll go in and do exactly what this raptor is designed to do. Is it more effective? Not really, because it's a freaking raptor, man.
Well, there's that scene where they're having the auction, right? And they have all these villains. And, you know, it literally looked like the worst stereotyped villains. There was that bad Russian guy that says, 20 million, 25 million. But the whole scene reminded me of the breakdance fight in Zoolander. Like, everything was so ridiculous and so over the top that it just seemed, it did not feel realistic. I wonder if they were trying to achieve that, or if they were trying to make it look real and scary.
And the tone of this movie for me is kind of all over the place, because like we have these serious, like intense moments sprinkled into this ridiculous movie. And there's things that happen that just don't make sense and that bother me.
Like what?
I'll give you the scene that really got to me was the whole boat scene. So they take a truck, they jump onto the boat
Over
with
the
the truck,
the
over
boat
the
has
water.
pulled
The
up.
thing is, like the ramp is moving. They jump on. Number one, no one notices that a truck jumped off the pier onto the boat, right?
No one on the boat.
Yeah, no one on the boat, which is full of all these like top-end paid mercenaries. Maybe that's why we need the super dinosaurs, because they may have noticed that, right? And then like out of nowhere, you know, one of the dinosaurs is injured, Blue, which is Chris Pratt's kind of like, who is a character in the movie, but we'll talk about that a little later. And like they need a blood transfusion, so they go to the T-Rex container. Then the T-Rex starts to wake up, which was cool because it was like a big practical effect, which is awesome, right? So, but at the same time, the T-Rex screams, jumps around inside, and then someone's like, "Hey, this door is open," but nobody noticed the T-Rex screaming right after. And maybe I'm nitpicking, but the movie is like that.
Oh, it was full of plot holes.
It's full of plot holes. It's full of like
Editing mistakes.
There's just like these bad guys are like the dumbest.
Well, it kind of reminded me of, there was a movie earlier this year. Was it The Snowman? There was a movie that was not, they didn't have enough budget to finish the movie, but they made it anyways. And sometimes there were things in this movie that reminded me, it's like, but that makes no sense. It's okay. It's, you know, we'll just show Chris Pratt's smiling face and people will forget. No, people remember these things. In regards to the story, I also have to mention that one thing that I thought was cool was that beginning scene with the exploding volcano, and that this cataclysmic event was kind of shoehorned into the beginning of the movie, whereas that should have been the end. I feel that they could have inverted the entire sequence of action, and that would have made for a better movie. It would have been more exciting. They put all the excitement to the beginning, and at the beginning I was like, okay, there's some kind of cool things here, and then at the end of the movie they're just kind of indoors in these small rooms, and it just felt like it was a big letdown in terms of the momentum.
I don't know, man. I just think overall this movie was just, the story in this movie is just ridiculous. I don't know if that would have saved it. Maybe it would have been better, like from a pacing perspective, to have this giant spectacle at the end. And the ending of this movie is...
Well, wait a minute. I do think that the movie was, it's okay. Here. The movie is a means to an end. It's just there to get us to the third movie, which the premise of which, we don't necessarily have to spoil it, but the premise of which is potentially very cool because, you know...
I just don't see how that could be a thing.
What,
Anyways, let's talk about the characters, and we'll move this along, I think.
Genetic power has now been unleashed.
You can't put it back in the box.
All right, Manny, let's talk about the cast and the characters. Because, you know, yes, Bryce Dallas Howard and Chris Pratt are back. They're the centerpieces. There was a great supporting cast that were completely underutilized.
Completely.
Yeah.
Like, I was kind of disappointed. I found these characters a bit more interesting, but also they were kind of like there when they needed to be there, and their skills were too good when they needed, like, I can't remember the character's name or the actor's name, which is embarrassing to me. The guy from The Get Down. He's in this movie.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And he plays like a tech.
Justice Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a great actor. I love that guy. And
Oh, but it was such a cliche.
he was like the cliche, nerdy guy. I'm scared of everything, but I'm really good at my job, and I'll be there to save the day at the end. Also, the comedic relief. Like, there's no characters in this movie.
Well, let's list some. I mean, because you've got just in supporting cast: James Cromwell, Toby Jones, Geraldine Chaplin. So Charlie Chaplin's daughter, is it daughter, granddaughter? Anyways, Charlie Chaplin's progeny. Justice Smith, as you mentioned. There was one character that I did enjoy.
Yeah, I know.
Was, the casting of Ted Levine, aka Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs. He played the bad guy, who I alluded to was a bit like a G.I. Joe kind of bad
He was,
guy.
again, like a G.I. Joe henchman, like really over the top, weird, like, type of tendency. Like, he was collecting teeth from the dinosaurs.
He was the only one who when he was on screen, I was like, okay, I want to watch what happens here. There was a magnetic quality to him.
Yeah,
but-
just like Chris Pratt's character. Chris Pratt's character basically has evolved into Star-Lord.
Right.
So basically, he was Star-Lord in this movie. He's a scientist, first of all, who is an amazing shot.
Yeah.
Can shoot anything, knows how to use every gun that he picks up.
dives off, 1,000-meter
Dives
cliff.
off into
and,
the cliff, survives
yeah.
as lava's chasing him. Also is amazing in hand-to-hand combat against paid mercenaries. He was dropping these guys like it was nothing. He had like a John Wick moment where he just plowed through like 6 guys to get to the elevator door. And
But
I was just like, what happened here? You have not set up this guy to be that badass at all before. And it comes out of, like, that's the problem with this movie, again, is that a lot of the character traits and things that the characters do are out of context. Was it really cool to see Chris Pratt beat up 6 guys? Of course, I love Chris Pratt. It was awesome. Was it well choreographed? Yeah, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Was it necessary? No.
No, and everything that ever happens in this movie is all just pure luck. It's all dumb luck. There's no, avoiding the giant lava flows. The fact that he was able to get them out of the submerged thing with just his pocket knife. The fact that
That's the thing. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Let's talk about Jeff Goldblum. Because Jeff Goldblum, I think a lot of people were excited that Jeff is in this movie, and he probably showed up for an hour on set, if that.
And it looks like they cut his speech in half.
Yeah.
Because they give you the first half of the speech at the beginning of the movie happens, and then they give you the other half of his speech at the end, and you're like, what is the point?
But you know what? I read a quote where he said that he felt that his involvement in this movie was a bit like parsley or garnish. Like, just throw a little bit in there to make the plate
Add
look
a
that
little
much
bit
better.
of Goldblum.
Yeah, add a little bit of Goldblum.
Add a little bit of Goldblum.
Put that on the menu.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we should also talk about the direction and the effects. But let's see some of those effects, and we'll come back and talk about that. Okay, so we'll get to the effects, but first of all, I have to say, when the credits were rolling and I saw the name of the director, and I was like, I didn't even recognize his name, and I was not impressed with his work on this, I realized, wait a minute, I've seen his other work. J.A. Bayona, he did The Impossible, the movie about the tsunami, and he also did The Orphanage, which was a Spanish director. He's done some great stuff. Where was his touch in this movie?
Well, I find his touch comes out in the more intimate scenes. Like when they jump off the cliff and they're stuck in that glass kind of like tour ball from the first movie. It's a very intense scene and it's very close quarters, and you can tell he shined in that. A lot of like the smaller character scenes, there are some, very few, but
there are
they're
moments.
there. And there's this one scene where the Mega Raptor is kind of climbing into the room, hunting this little girl.
Is that the one where the dinosaur opens the
That's
door?
Exactly. That's the problem with this movie. It's like you have something good, but then you make a freaking dinosaur open a door that has never interacted with any doors, so we can't say it's learned. It's just like, oh, this is how a door works.
Like I said, dumb luck.
Yeah, it's like this door works like so, and then climbs into the room, and then you have Chris Pratt Ex Machina, which is what is the whole movie based on, is that this guy is exactly at the right place, exactly at the right time with exactly the right tool. And that's what frustrates me about this movie. There's no stakes. It makes no sense.
Right, I never felt a sense of danger.
I wasn't scared. You know when I felt scared? At the end. When they let all the dinosaurs loose in California. That's the only time I'm like, oh, well, we're clearly fucked because we live with dinosaurs now. And to say they were like, you know, regular people-sized dinosaurs, maybe we could do something. But there's a fucking T-Rex loose in Los Angeles right now.
Well, that's for part 3, right?
There's a T-Rex loose in Los Angeles,
just a movie,
Eric.
man. Look, and speaking of which, let's talk about the effects, because for me, you know, there was some discussion after this movie. The CGI was good. I didn't buy it. I'm a big critic of CGI, and I felt that the dinosaurs in this movie just didn't have any heft. It kind of reminded me of the Pacific Rim 2 that we saw, where none of the monsters, none of the robots.
I find the giant dinosaurs were giant and heavy,
Yeah.
and the small dinosaurs were small and light. That's pretty much how they depicted this.
I just felt I was not immersed in the movie because I felt like I was watching computer effects. Not that when they had the puppets. That was
practical effects,
The practical that was worth it. But then, as
Because
our
the
colleague,
practical effects were kind of enhanced with CGI, and I feel that gave the dinosaurs a more realistic feel and like in the set because they were lit just like you would light a subject, and these practical effects were so well executed and so realistic. It just
except the dinosaurs were just lying on the ground. You know, it's not hard to do practical effects with a dinosaur that's been heavily sedated and he's just moving his head. Like
they pulled it off in the first one.
Well, exactly. The first one, I still think that the first one, the effects were better than anything they've done since this.
Which blows my mind, which again comes down to having a talented director approaching a new technology and a new opportunity and really learning it. This is where a director's skill and how in touch they are with the art department and the CG department and the practical effects and putting their hands in anything. It's just like why none of the other Terminator movies look like Terminator 2.
Right.
Because James Cameron's a hands-on, Steven Spielberg's hands-on, Christopher Nolan is hands-on. You can tell, like, no, put this texture in the bat suit. Make, you know, let's work on your makeup. Like, there's a touch that directors, I find, are kind of brushing off to the second unit. Like, okay, I'll direct the actors, I'll be there, I'll overview everything, but I'll let the effects department take care of what this looks like. I'll let the practical effects take care of what this looks like.
So in other words, the cohesion wasn't there in terms of the workflow, and I think that came out.
I just feel that's a huge problem in giant studio pictures. That's 100% like something we're dealing with. And I won't even, like, as I always do, I always love Marvel, but Marvel has shown that as well too, where some of the directors kind of leave the second unit, take care of the stunt work, and then like, it shows that nothing meshes really well in the end. It kind of reflects that.
Well, speaking of Marvel, next week, Mojo at the Movies, we'll be talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp.
That's a fun one.
So tune in for that. And I guess, you know, for all the shitting on this movie that we're doing, we're probably going to still go see number 3 because we want to see what happens with dinosaurs out in the world. So.
Overall, basically, is this a fun time at the movies? Turn your brain off, have a couple beers, jump into the theater. You might enjoy yourself. You might laugh at this was a decision that somebody made.
Right, this was a movie, as you're wont to say for your movie reviews, this was a movie with actors, it got made.
Yeah.
So there's our review. Thank you guys very much. Let us know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to check out our further reviews. Thank you, Manny. See you next time.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out these other great clips from WatchMojo and subscribe for new videos every day.